Hello, my name is Conan Elliott and I'm the Director of Instruction here at Camas Meadows Golf Club in Camas, Washington. Today we're going to talk about how to hit a lob wedge. The materials we'll need today are a lob wedge, which will be a 58, 60, 62, 64 degrees of loft, a golf ball, and a place to practice it. First thing about a lob wedge is we're trying to hit the ball high. Well, we don't have to hit the ball high. That's why we buy a lob wedge. And lob wedges, for you to understand, is started about a 58 degrees up to maybe even including 64 degrees. So they have a lot of loft, the way the club lays to the ground. This is the leading edge of the club. The bottom of the club is called the bounce or sole of the club. So as with the club has less loft, it sets more like this, like a pitching wedge, and the ball would come out very low. But as the club adds loft, as sitting on its sole, the ball comes up higher. That's why we call them lob wedges, lobs it up in the air. So according to the way you set up to a golf ball, if you have a tendency to set up and hit the ball where it's to the front, you would need more bounce in order to let the club lay back and have a correct loft. If you have a tendency to hit back toward the back of the club, you need less bounce to allow the club to sit on its bottom and have the correct loft. So loft is the first thing on how high it's going to go, but bounce controls your consistency as to where you can hit it consistent. And the bounce is the amount of roll that there is on this club, anywhere from 0 degrees clear up to 14 degrees of roll right there. So it's actually not our job to hit the ball higher with the lob wedge, it's the lob wedge's job to hit the ball higher. So the tendency though is when we think high, and we think the ball up in the air, is to use our hands. And you can just basically think about if your hands are moving this way in the golf swing, if our hands are trying to lift the ball in the air, you'll be a very poor lob wedge player, you'll be a very, very poor chipper of the ball. But when our hands start to get really quiet, our right wrist stays very quiet into the club so that the club bounces on the ground. So the bottom of the golf club strikes the ground first, not the edge. Then the loft of the club makes the ball go in the air. So bounce becomes very, very important when you buy your lob wedges. Bounce is according to how you swing. So if you have a tendency to hit out on the edge of the club a lot, on the very leading edge, then you want a little bit more bounce on that golf club, more roll on the bottom. If you have a tendency to already hit toward the back of the club, where the club hits the ground on the back, then we would want less bounce. Bounce goes from almost no bounce, 0, up to even 12, 14 degrees of bounce or roll. So very important that you keep your hands quiet, let the club do its job and bounce on the ground. Get fitted. That's the #1 thing in wedges. That's how to hit a lob wedge, and this is Conan Elliott.